was learning. But what he did have, he had enough information in the paperwork that he had that he gave to the police officer, and the police officer said, yeah, you're allowed to do this. Just let your mum know that you're a young kid, you're probably going to get stopped a lot, and you might not get somebody who's as knowledgeable and as understanding as me as a cop. So be careful about doing this in future. But in the event, you obviously know what you're doing. Have a nice day.
You're talking about Savern driving car that was registered to his mom or something like that. Was that a video on YouTube?
It was out on video. It was a YouTube video, and it was classed as a success. I don't know if it's still down there because they tend to take those successful ones down very quickly. But that was a prime example. It was the usage of the car at that moment in time. He was travelling. He said, "I'm just travelling. The car's owned by my mum and it's registered under my mum's name, but I'm not carrying passengers. I'm not transporting. I'm not engaged in commerce, and I don't need a driving license." And he gave that evidence to the cop, and the cop said, "Yeah, you're right. You have the capability of doing that."
Yeah, good luck finding another one.
There are, well, like I mentioned, there are cops out there, and I think there are more of them because there are many more of them now. They watch YouTube like the rest of us, and they come across these things, and I think some of that information gets through to them as well. So they have to deal with it. They have to know how to deal with it. Some are bullies, some are authoritarian, and some are just, honour their oath. And as I mentioned, the military or former military officers really honour that oath.
Right.
And I honoured my oath. And I still do. I still act in peace.
Unless you got those that did atrocities over there, sometimes they, that's, I know they're out there, but
A lot of those, unfortunately, it was a case of, I could tell you a few occasions where I disobeyed illegal orders. I won't say legal orders.
Okay.
I disobeyed illegal orders.
We'll get a different story.
They had the responsibility to disobey illegal orders.
Right.
The issue, of course, when you're in the military is you're on your own when you do that sometimes because you have no backup.
Right.
And your supervisors, as it goes up the chain of command, they stomp all over you.
Yeah.
As an honourable man, I personally was disobeying illegal orders.
Right.
And I kind of paid the price for it because I ended up making enemies in the chain of command.
Right.
And I made enemies of my peers. But I stood honourably, I stood strong, I stood in my own truth, and I never let anybody put me down for that. I never let anybody say that I was wrong for doing that. I honour that every single day that I stood up to these people, because I was one of a very small few.
Exactly.
And I've learned a lot more over the years, and I stand now before everybody to say the same thing. And you operate honourably, you operate with knowledge, and you provide evidence in your defence before it gets to court, before you have to deal with prosecutors.
Right.
Everything is noticed. You stick these in your car, or verbs similar to it. If you want to change it, that's fine.
So the
whole point is that you're telling people that this is a private conveyance, it's private property. I'm not a taxi cab, I'm not a livery vehicle, I'm not transporting goods, and I'm not operating in commerce.
You actually use a sign that size on a regular standard automobile?
Yeah, that's like a spare.
Pretty big, that's pretty good size. Because you're...
Oh, it can be seen.
No, but are you not able to see on that portion of the, put in the back window, that's taking up a lot of,
Oh, no, I put it in the corner.
Oh, okay.
And actually what's happened on mine, unfortunately, just recently with the sun, it got so hot that the tape I was using to hold it in place,
Right.
glue melted and it fell off,
Oh.
it fell down. So it's still there,
Right.
and it can be seen,
Okay.
but
It's
it
not
can
the
only
rear
be
view.
seen very well until I stick it back up again. But when you approach from the rear, oh, you can see it there.
Okay.
You might have to approach to actually see it now. Or if you follow, like most cops, you'll be following me anyway. And they have been. I mean, I told you, I told Nelson, told others on the trip down here, the trip back. I've had sheriffs, I've had...
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I've had local...
because of the
town,
area?
city police.
Okay.
They've been following me. I've had them behind me for 10 minutes.
You talking about because of the tags you have on, or because of the...
No, I think we just ended up going in the same direction.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that they were following me specifically, but usually when they do that, I make sure that, you know, if I'm going to turn, change lanes, I indicate. I do everything. Because advanced driving,
Right.
I give them almost nothing
Right.
to warrant pulling me over.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if the light changes to orange, that's it, I stop.
If you're
None of this going through on orange, none of
Okay.
this not indicating when I turn left or right or change lanes.
Now, if you're on a turnpike, you like, you know, go above the speed limit by maybe 5 miles an hour. I heard different things.
5 to 10.
Okay. So within 10, you know, if you're going to keep it 10 or under, you're generally speaking, they're not going to probably, you know, unless you're in and out type of thing like this.
It depends on the traffic. I mean,
Right.
if you're traveling 10 miles an hour faster than the speed limit,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody's going 15 miles an hour slower than the speed limit because of the amount of traffic on there,
You stand out.
then you're really driving excessively
Well,
fast.
and the excessive people going 15 miles faster, because it's in, you know, you're going down, it's like, it's very popular, it's not like downstate, or down, I mean, upstate, or, you know, not like Newark or something.
Mhm.
It's very congested. That's a little different. So in other words, you
Yeah.
basically adjust to the flow of traffic.
Yeah,
pretty
you
much.
adjust, and
Okay.
it depends on the traffic conditions. I mean, a prime example, not so very long ago, I was actually going back up, actually about 3 years ago, when I first started doing this, and I was going back up into Canada. At this point, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on the other side of the Poconos,
Right.
going up on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
Winter time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great here. We had a little bit of rain.
Okay.
I got to the other side of the Poconos, it's 4 inches of snow on the ground. 3 o'clock in the morning, no plows had been out.
Yeah.
I couldn't even see the lanes of the highway.
Wow.
And I'm driving along, and who's this freaking idiot in my mirror? I mean, he was like 30 feet in
Wow.
this snow, right behind me.
So you stop short, he's going to be in your back.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to stop. And as it was, the very fact that the snow was on the ground
Right.
slowed me on occasion because there was some drift parts,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not doing 50.
Yeah.
Advanced driver, I mean, I could
Right.
drive,
Right.
and it was comfortable to me.
Right.
It wasn't a problem.
Okay.
But every now and again, I hit a little bit of a drift, and the car went, ugh. And him behind me suddenly got close because he didn't have that drift. He was driving or
Right.
trying to follow
Follow
my
you, yeah.
tracks.
Right.
So
So
he
this
didn't
was it.
have that impediment quite so much.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I was slowing down without any indication of brake lights or
Yeah.
anything, and then he was coming up on me.
Right.
So, but he followed me for quite a while.
Hmm.
And then as the snow kind of thinned out a little bit, pulled out, and then took off.
So this was a Pennsylvania State Trooper?
It was a state trooper.
That's me.
So he'd been following me for all of this snow time.
Right.
And then when it started to thin out, and a little further on I actually saw him turn off.
We're always grateful for the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying a pet.
What kind of pet was that? Yeah.
I've done it 1,000 times.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've had them follow me. I've had them see me. I've interacted with the local cops where I'm staying. And actually, one that I did mention was that they had to close the road because there was a gas leak.
Right.
And we were coming back, and literally maybe 50 feet beyond where the cop car was in the road was where the driveway was that I needed to pull in.
Right.
So I pulled over by the side of it, you know, window down. So what's the problem? Well, gas leak down there, a bit further down, so we've had to close the road until we deal with it. Oh, okay. I live just over there. Can I go down and just pull in the garage? No, you can't, but I know where you live, but no, you can't. He was one of the local cops. He knew where I lived.
Oh.
He'd seen my car before. He'd seen it on the driveway.
Yeah.
He knew who I was. But wasn't going to let me go down there.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to park on one of the side roads
Right.
and then walk to the house until we dealt with it all, then get the car and drive it into the driveway.
Yeah.
But just as a follow-on to that, because of the situation with the car that I have, I almost always park on private property. Very, very rarely leave it on the road.
What do you call private?
Houses specifically, but if you're talking about other private property, I would extend it to private business parking lots. So if you're on one of those highways with strip malls down there, instead of pulling over on the highway into a parking bay, if they're going to pull you over, pull into the parking lots. They may still try and tow it from there anyway if you're going to get to that point, but the reason that they tow it from the roads is that it's a danger to traffic, and they're removing the danger to traffic. But if it's on a private land or in a parking lot, there's no danger to anybody.
Right.
Unless they have other reasons and they say, well, no, it's an unregistered vehicle, we're towing it. Well, why? It's private property. I've already told you it's private property. You don't have jurisdiction. So if you're going to arrest me, fine, but you're leaving the car there. I'll notify and get somebody to pick you up. So that's, it's all knowing how to deal, knowing how to prepare in advance, and the more you learn, the more often it happens, the more experienced you become. Now, fortunately, I've been doing this full time
Gaining
now.
that experience might be very pricey.
Well, that's it. It can be. It can be.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that what you're intending to try and do is just keep these guys away from them.
Right.
That's why there's a notice. It's why, all of these sovereign groups, there's thousands and thousands of documents that have all got on there notice to agent, and notice to principal. Notice. You're
Right.
noticing them.
Yeah.
You're giving them notice. You're
Right.
telling them up front.
Yeah.
So why not do it with the car you
Right.
I went
traveling
through
around?
this, and I gotta tell you, it's much better than trials.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Dealing with it after the fact is a lot harder
Right.
than dealing with it before, and that's the whole process about the presentation. It's to deal with the situation in advance. It's to notice them, notify them, and keep them off you.
Right. Preventive maintenance.
And the idea as well, it's one thing I didn't actually mention, but one of the things that's a prime example, and I think of it now because we had another interested man that came to the information share a couple of years ago. He unfortunately had a license plate that was registered to a vehicle that he owned, but he put it on a vehicle that he had recently acquired that didn't have registration.
Oh man, wow.
Yes. And they scanned.
Wait, this was the place he took him from a registered.
It was a registered vehicle that he owned,
Oh, I see.
and he put it on a vehicle
Just to
that
work
again
with
he owned but wasn't registered. Two different vehicles.
Better.
So when he came across into Ocean City, cameras had scanned, or even if it was just a cop car,
Yeah.
they scanned it, said, hey, wait a minute, woo, that doesn't match. That comes up as something else. So
Yeah.
the next thing they know, they pulled him up. First mistake, he didn't know exactly where he was going and he stopped on the street.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was the second mistake. The first mistake was changing the plates
Yeah.
because he committed a crime, gave them probable cause. If you have one of the plates, if you have valid or you have registration plates from a state and the tag has expired, cover the tag.
Yeah.
Cover it. If you don't, you're showing evidence of your potential crime
Well, New
or
Jersey,
infraction.
New Jersey eliminated the tags. They no
Yeah, it's on the
longer-
windshield now. But there are, and again, I'm doing this for states where tags are still relevant.
Yeah.
So it's the sign of an offence. So cover the tag. In New Jersey, the inspection sticker that they would have on the windshield, take it off. Why show evidence of an infraction?
Right.
It's nothing to do with you anymore. Why have it there? That's giving them the probable cause to pull you over because they believe they've got the jurisdiction to deal
Well,
with
if
you.
you're keeping it registered, you gotta keep it inspected.
Yes, and if you're going to go through that and keep it registered, again, you don't need the driving license if you're not operating in. But the idea to become sovereign is to step completely out of it. The car is your private property. They have no jurisdiction over it at all.
Yeah, you see,
Now, in your case,
license alone is not enough. Registration is not enough. You gotta take several steps back.
no, it
It
can
has-
be enough. It can be enough. That's what I'm saying with all of this. It's notice to them.
It's notice, but it doesn't. It doesn't set you free and safe.
No,
Because
until
you're still in a system.
no, you're not necessarily in the system. What we have to understand is that this country operates under constitutional republic law. Each man is an individual.
So you wish.
We are individual sovereign beings, each one of us. We are supposed to operate, the country was founded on the principles that we are all kings. We interact with each other. We set up the government to do the things that needed doing, like maintaining roads,
But-
setting up townships, setting rules that everybody needed to follow. Government has grown way too big. Governments are now saying, and the representatives are now saying they're our leaders. They're not. They've never been our leaders. They're our public servants.
Right.
They're our representatives. We are the power. That has been taken away from the education in this country. The number of people, I wasn't even born in this country. I know more about the Constitution
Right.
than most of the Americans do. And it's shameful.
Yeah.
It's shameful.
Yeah.
That's what we need to recognise and get back to again. When this country can and when people can live that way, when we understand that each individual man or woman is king, and they are responsible, they are self-responsible, self-determined.
System designed, but nothing but lawyers and attorneys to drag you deeper.
Yeah, and that's it.
Deeper.
Everything's 180 degrees.
Deeper.
I understand it. It's 180 degrees.
All the contracts signed. I don't think we can ever free that from Social Security once it attaches to yourself.
No, you can. You just don't use it.
Yeah.
If you don't use it, anywhere here in Ocean City or back home in Brick, I will not be able to walk into bank and open account.
Again, they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
I have all the documentation. I even had a vice president of a bank tell me that they are breaking the law. But the problem is that they have
Knowingly
another
they are
law
breaking
called
it.
the Patriot Act that
Yeah.
says they have to follow these rules. And if they don't, the government fines them. And the fine is huge for every infraction. So what that vice president told me was they'd sooner pay out for lawsuits for the knowledgeable ones that took them to court because they couldn't open a bank
So you're saying
when they have the legal and lawful authority to be able to. And they said
They still
we'd
need to
rather
make those
take the hit
lawsuits.
from a lawsuit
Right.
than pay the government these extortion fines
Well,
for
when that-
having accounts that don't
Yeah.
have a social
In
security.
other words, they're making sure they're making impossible for you to.
But that's why this country needs to
Okay.
waken up. The people in this country need to wake up, and they need to push back against this.
Look at
This
all-
situation right now with Biden and the Democratic Party,
Look at
if
all
people
the-
don't push back,
look
we're going to have communists in
Right.
power in this
Look
country.
at all the masks. Look at all the masks.
Yeah, I know.
it's all bogus. It's all fake.
How do you bring it back?
Yeah.
You
You
have
see,
to
these
educate
are
people.
indoctrinated people,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's part of
It's the
the
people,
education
right.
that we have to bring to people.
We don't have enough of those black glasses.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of people who want to be willfully ignorant. They choose to
Anyone
be.
familiar with that
Yeah.
movie, They Live?
Yeah, exactly. 1988,
Unfortunately,
right.
if it benefits
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and that's
Black
what
glasses?
Yeah.
you see, the government, the
Obey.
Democratic Party
Yeah.
have bought the population.
Huh.
because they say, oh, you don't want to work, fine, we'll give you welfare.
Yeah.
It's not enough to really live, and you live in a slum most of the time, but
Well, some
getting
people
free
do
money
pretty good considering.
and free food, because they give
Yeah.
you food too.
Well, some people have side jobs and are making more because
Oh,
they're not
yeah,
paying
they do,
property
because they're getting
and paying
welfare
tax, right.
and they go and make
Exactly.
money on the side.
Right.
Systems.
I know people on
It
welfare
isn't.
who are driving Range Rovers.
Range
Yeah,
Rovers?
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you
No,
mean?
well,
You know?
actually, I know a few that
I-
drive Mercedes
I-
too, so.
Go to
I've seen
Brooklyn, at Atlantic Avenue, welfare office, nothing but BMWs, Mercedes says mint codes going to pick up welfare check.
But that's it, that's
Yeah.
how they've done it. They've bought the population
But when you're going to
and
a bank,
dumbed them down because they've never told them what was.
People
what was
use
possible.
the system, use the system.
oh yeah,
Well, no, they don't. They use the system, they don't abuse it. The system is in
Well,
place
they
for them to
abuse it
use.
by using something that should not belong to them.
Yeah, well, it's communism. Communism's
think-
already here.
you can thank certain
Because
parties.
they take
that-
from one
Right.
group of people in
Right.
taxes and the like, and then they give it to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how. You look at the 10 planks. Look it up. 10 planks
We
of
got to mostly
communism.
do all of them, right?
All 10 of them are here
Yeah, yeah,
right now.
that's right. Well, you went to talk about the banker. Though. Is he talking about just basically U.S. citizens? You come in and you show that I'm an American state national. Here's my paperwork. I'm not part of the. Is he also talking about not opening accounts for someone like that who wants to maybe, I'm saying open a trust?
Yeah, one.
They want you. I know they're asking for Social Security even if you open a trust.
Yeah, one of the provisions for opening a bank account. Apparently, foreign nationals can open a bank account.
Mhm.
They should be using their passport. There's a number on the passport. And
Right.
They use that number and they use the passport
Mhm.
as the form of identification.
Right.
That, previously, to my knowledge, was enough. Whether that's still the case, I can't prove
No,
it.
not they want something with your residence.
Well, yeah, they want proof of
They want to see if
address,
you-
but
right.
it doesn't matter because if everything I do is care of,
Right.
whatever
Exactly.
shit it's care of,
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm making the distinction.
Right.
The other issue is that they want you
I
to
just
get
listed on
a
your
TIN
driver's
number.
license,
TIN
it's
number.
written care of.
I'm sorry, Alan?
What are you telling me? Your address shown on your driver's license
I don't have a
says
driver's
care
license.
of.
Yeah. When you're saying through the driver's license, you're saying that you're basically part of the system. You can use it. You can use a passport too for that.
Driver's license is a contract.
The contract, right?
Is it all caps name? Because then the driver's license is like
All caps, yeah.
That's why I said, I'm not sure if you missed that too, because I know you arrived a little bit late. But having a driver's license, registration, insurance, all of those things are evidence of contracts. Now you can tell the cop, I'm not going to give you anything.
And I do have commercial policy, so
Yes,
it
I
makes
know,
every
yeah.
bit of sense to
Of course.
keep it. Yes.
And you can make the distinction between when you're operating as a traveller and when you're operating as a commercial business, which is fine. But you have to make that distinction. As soon as you hand the cop a driving licence, he's automatically got your jurisdictional operating in commerce.
Right.
And you gave him the evidence. You gave him the driving licence. You gave him the registration. You gave him proof of insurance if he asked for it. Most don't need to these days because it's on the computer. It's linked. So now they usually just ask for registration and license and registration. But if you don't have them at all, you can't give them. You can't be coerced. You can't have them taken out of your pocket by illegal searches and used what they call personage and barratry, because then they give you the name. They put the name on you. It's not your name, but they tie the two together and say, you're Mr. Because it says so on this card. No, that card's not me.
That's not me.
It's got your picture on it. It's not me.
Somehow you cannot use that as evidence in a court of law. It's a hearsay.
What is?
Your driver's license.
No, it's evidence. It's evidence for them.
No, but
It's evidence of the contract. It's evidence of the contract that you signed with DMV that said, I want a driving license to operate in commerce and I'll obey all the laws and rules and codes that I'm obligated to fact that you did sign for it, and you're not operating under that, you're travelling, there's a distinction. You potentially can do that. But the fact that you have that driving license with you, if things escalate, the cops don't see the distinction, which is why I make the distinction on this form. I have it so that they have it, they get it, and it's part of their case, it's part of the evidence package. They might not understand the damn thing that's on there, but believe me, the prosecutor does, and the judge does, and if you bring it out in court, if it ever gets that far, you have multiple grounds for dismissal. Hopefully before then you'd have it dismissed before it even gets to a court date. The whole point is I'm trying to stop cops from issuing tickets and from arresting people right on the side of the road for you to peacefully get on your way.
So if someone wants to they travel a lot, whatever business, and they have a car that is in a trust that is registered with the state that they operate most of the time. But they have a passport that they use. They don't have a driver's license, or if they do, they don't use it, right? And if someone says, license and registration, gets stopped. Someone says, look, they don't want to be detained. Well, they gave that out. I mean, what would happen then, or what would be the procedure there? I mean, they may get
a driver's license?
No. They give a passport. Someone, they said driver's license registration. You don't say anything. You just give them a passport, about valid passport, and they.
The typical first question is, what's this?
Okay.
Why are you giving me this?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So in other words, you don't.
It's not what they asked for.
Right.
It's not what they're expecting. So they'll say, well, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you giving me this? Maybe they know it's a passport.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, why are you giving me this? It's not what I asked for. I want a driver's license.
Okay, so you should just forget about that totally. Then.
Well, you're giving them the name.
Yeah, I see. Right.
And then the next thing they do is they go ferreting around their computer systems.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right.
I have no idea what those systems go into these days.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they've got your full driver's record, you've got the vehicles you own, the registration, the address that you live at, the ones you've lived at for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
They do.
Right.
Oh, I know they do.
Yeah. Okay.
And especially if you've had lots of interactions with them.
Yeah.
The less interactions you've had with them, the less information they have.
Mm-hmm.
But, they'll be pulling up social security numbers and all sorts of shit.
Mm.
So you don't even give them your name.
Right.
Actually, that's one thing I didn't mention.
Okay.
One of the things that cops will do as well, I'm glad that came up because it's something that happens every time.
Mm.
And some cops don't know that they have a limit on this. So, first thing they do, license and registration. I'm sorry, I don't answer questions. I'm not going to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, now you're failing to identify to a police officer. That's an offence. And you say, no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but failing to identify to a police officer is after arrest for a criminal offence. Now, if I fail to identify myself after you've arrested me for a criminal offence, not a traffic infraction, and I fail to give you my identity, then it's an offence. Until then, I can operate under protections of the Constitution and the Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination. And it's been held under court proceedings and court citations that your name itself could lead to self-incrimination.
Right. Especially if it's a straw man, which is a little.
Well,
yeah.
It could lead to warrants that may
Yeah.
exist,
Mm-hmm.
and you've just self-incriminated yourself by giving the name.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't committed. I mean, this is one of their favourites. Oh, now you've got to give me. You're driving a vehicle on the road, and you've got to give me your ID.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't.
Right.
And I think for most states that's relevant. That's correct.
I've seen a ton of others for not identifying oneself.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of them are legal. Again, you've got to point it out. Officer, I think you've got that wrong. And the best thing to do is look under the title, the statutes under your state. Look it up specifically. There was a video, funny enough it was Texas based, and it was a coloured guy. On his own lawn, nice house, you know, it was in a nice area, nice house,
Right.
and it was,
Cleaning around.
I'm not even sure what, I don't see before it, but they were outside, the front of their house, and a cop car came by, and then turned around and came back again. And it was a couple, so it was African American, male and female, couple outside this really nice house. And the cops, wait a minute, came back again, get out of the car, who are you, do you live here? The guy was straight up, knew exactly what he was all about. And first thing he said, get off my property, because they'd come onto the property. And he said, get off my property, get back on the road, you're on my property. And they did, they backed up, give them the due. But then he came forward then anyway.
Insisting on seeing some.
Yeah, they wanted ID. They wanted ID.
Yeah.
Because they said they wanted to know that he lived there. They thought they were burglars, they were casing the joint.
Yeah.
In a
It's their
broad daylight.
house, they lived
That's in
there.
a broad daylight.
And he was in broad daylight.
Yeah.
So what it came down to was that the cop started threatening because he said, I want to see your ID. And he said, no, I'm not giving you my ID. I don't have to. I'm sorry, you have to identify yourself to a police officer when you're asked. And this guy jumped all over him. He said, as per title, I don't even remember what it was, Title 10, or I'm not even sure. But it was Texas code. And he quoted him the damn title, the code, the section, subsection. And he
I
said,
was blown.
he said, I don't have to give you shit. He said, the only time that I have to provide ID to you is if you've arrested me for a criminal offence. Am I under arrest? Have I committed a criminal offence? The officer said no. So he said, in that case, you don't have shit. Stop threatening me.
Right.
He was starting to get agitated at this
Yeah,
point, you
yeah.
know. But he jumped all over this
Oh,
cop.
that's great.
The cop went to his buddy and they were looking all this up. They didn't even know.
Yeah.
They
Right.
didn't even know. And then he got on the damn radio.
Yeah.
This went on for about 10 or 15 minutes. They got on the radio to their supervisor. They went and looked it up. This is how bizarre it is.
Oh, man.
They've been operating for years on the understanding that if anybody they asked to identify themselves failed to identify themselves, they were arresting them. They had no power to do it.
Right.
For the simple reason that they had not committed an offence and they were not under arrest.
Right.
If they were under arrest for a criminal offence, then when they demanded ID, they had to give it. Failure to give at that point is a felony. And that was what he was saying. So these two cops got educated at that point.
Yeah.
But again, check the state resources, check the state codes that relate to identify to a police officer, identification to a police officer.
Right.
On arrest, almost all of it.
Yeah.
Almost all the time, you have to identify yourself and don't give false identity, because then that's another felony.
Yeah. But if they come up to you, say New York, and I don't know why, but two cops. Now I'm outside the apartment I was renting, and they asked for that. I can't remember. You give them anything or not? And they just, they were just hassling me, whatever. I don't know. It was fishing for information, you know.
Yeah.
But they had no right to basically to do that. I mean, even though
No, they have every right to ask.
to ask, but not to pursue it. If I, you know.
Yeah, and if you turn around and say, I'm not giving you.
Right. Am I
It's
under
end of
arrest?
story at that point.
Right. Am I under arrest? And only if it's even if you're
Yeah,
under
well, I
arrest.
mean, you should really be asking. I guess that would be the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Am I under arrest? Usually, of course, the answer is no.
No. Yeah.
Well, goodbye, officer. I don't have to answer your questions, and I'm not going to give you my ID.
Right.
You know. Now, the big mistake is that sometimes people just walk away, which is good. That's what they should do because they have no power to stop them. What some people make the mistake of doing is, am I free to go? And the cops can say, well, no. Well, you're in an involuntary detention at that point. You are under arrest.
Yeah.
It's a legal arrest because they've got no cause.
Right.
unless they have got probable cause, but then there's another sequence of events that goes on, and you can still ask the questions. But if you give them an opportunity to prevent by asking them, ask their permission, they're going to take it, they're going to use it for their benefit, not yours.
This has happened, the more I think about it, this has happened to me, I was in park, because, we had a suspicious car. We thought your car, in other words, was involved in some kind of a bank robbery or whatever. The guy was just looking, wanted to know,
Okay.
it's like, right,
Let me explain something else again.
yeah.
They have to give probable cause
Mm-hmm.
for any kind of investigation.
Yeah.
So they have to show probable cause. Their probable cause is an excuse that, well, you look like somebody who's just been involved in a robbery or a burglary or
No, it
a
didn't say that. It
shoplifting.
just said the car looks like a car that would
No,
be-
I'm just saying just that, and they will also use cars.
Right.
Well, your car was seen leaving the scene of an armed
Yeah.
robbery, and,
Right.
or a vehicle fitting the description of your car was seen, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Insert whatever
Right.
excuse in the quotation points at this.
Yeah.
That's the way they do it.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to every time that happens, am I under arrest? No. Goodbye.
Right.
Walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't answer any other questions.
Yeah.
Don't get into it any further. You're done. Walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're fishing, they're in an investigation. If
Exactly.
they're coming up to you and they're talking to you, believe me, they're in an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Because cops are trained, you and me, arm's length,
Right.
they don't have interactions with the public. They avoid them at all costs.
Yeah.
Because their training says that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have interactions with members of the public.
Yeah.
Now in big cities, definitely.
Well, these are the
Small
cities.
towns, that
Yeah.
might be a different matter because everybody knows everybody else.
Right. This was a city,
But-
right, upstate city, So.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there's a sequence, and if they're approaching you and asking questions,
Mhm.
the last thing you want to be doing is answering them.
Right.
And if they've got probable cause, they'll arrest you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But if they haven't, don't give it to them. Goodbye.
Yeah.
You know. And the other thing is, as I say, I pointed out, check the failure to identify statutes in your state, whatever it might, whichever state it might be.
Can you use the 1974 Privacy Act?
There's no need, really. It is relevant for privacy, but I don't think you would need to go to that point. There are occasions when I've referred to it in documentation, but in this case, no, you don't need to even.
What goes there?
It's all part of probable cause and whether they have, the right, the right or the authority to even speak to you, because they don't. Now, I'm not saying that they can't talk to you. I mean, if they want to be cordial and just have a nice conversation with a member of the public, then fine, be like that. But be aware that any cop, when they're talking to you, whether it's the nice guy, good cop, bad cop, indifferent cop, they may be in the middle of an investigation, and they don't have to tell you. They should. They should be giving you a caution. They should be Mirandizing you right at the very beginning. They never do. Everything that they ever use in evidence against you, most of the time, isn't even legal, because they didn't caution you at the beginning of it.
It's prior to.
Forget about being lawful. It's not even legal. Yeah.
You get
Yeah,
yourself
sorry.
to the point when you're being.
Yeah.
Typically, what they will do is they get you to admit off the record kind of thing without the Miranda warning. When they have the evidence against you, then you get into an official investigation, official statement, official questioning, and then it's done on the record. But you're already arrested at that point. They've already got you. They already trick you into giving the information. We mentioned it last week. There's a video by Professor James Duane, who, it's titled "Don't Talk to Police," and he's got a subsequent one as well. But that one is on its own is enough, and it just proves how. You get the full interview. There's a cop that comes on afterwards.
Yeah.
What's the name?
An investigator. His name is Professor James Duane.
And you gotta keep up with this man because he speaks fast.
Okay.
Yeah, don't.
Not as fast as him, 'cause he talks fast.
Oh no, he really goes fast. I put it on. I typically put it on, like on YouTube videos. I put them on 0.25 or
Okay.
125.
James Duane.
Speed.
Don't talk to police is what it's called.
And slow down.
But if you happen to listen to it at 0.25 or 0.5, you'll not understand a word he's saying because it becomes all one sentence at that point. He speaks so fast. And funny enough, the cop mentions it. When it's his turn to speak, he says, I can't speak as quick as him. It's funny, but it's an incredible video, and it got millions and millions of hits. And everything he said is true. Everything. Because he's a law professor. And as a former police officer, I also know that it's true. You don't do it, which is why I say preferably don't talk to cops. Because you just don't know if they're operating in an investigative form. And anything you say, even in the Miranda warning, can and will be used against you in a court of law. Not maybe, not possibly, if we think it's relevant. It doesn't matter what you say, it's going to be taken down, and we're going to produce it in evidence at court, and we're going to find some way to use it against you. That's what it means. That's why there's a lot of people in jail for opening their mouth because they thought they were helping the police, and they were, but only to convict them, not to find the real criminal or the real perpetrator. And that's why there's a lot of innocent people in jail.
Yeah, and someone's
It's
making a lot of
unfortunate.
money on their
Yeah.
bonds, right?
Yeah, well, that's another story.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Like I say, there are honourable police, but,
Right.
you know, they have crimes that they want to tie up and get off the record, deal
What's
with.
his name again?
Professor James Duane, D-U-A-N-N-E, I think.
It was with professor, not doctor.
Yeah, Professor. The video's entitled "Don't Talk to Police." And he's actually got, I think it's 2 books. The first book he wrote was based off that, and then he's written one more recently. I have a copy of somewhere, which is "You Are Presumed Innocent," I think it's called. I forget the actual title of it, and I haven't even gotten around to reading it yet. I've been reading other stuff, but I'll be interested to read it and see what that says. But again, it's all information. It's all there to prepare you to deal with the police, to deal with authorities, to deal with agents of the government. All of this information, everything that Glenn talks about, everything that other people talk about, that is relevant. Some of it's pure bullcrap that some people talk about. It's there to prepare you to deal, to be honourable. None of this is about getting out of anything.
Right.
This is how to be responsible, how to be the adult, how to be the sovereign, how to live honourably, and hopefully make other people aware that this way of living exists, and turn this country back to the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
This is the only country in the world that operates this way. The only country. And that's why they want to destroy it, because the power comes from the people.
Yep.
Every other country in the world comes from the monarchy, comes from the parliament, comes from the dictator, you name it. There's a guy or a group at the top that
Yeah.
controls everything,
Right.
and we, the little people down below, get the scraps. This country is the other way around. They've turned it back on its head again, so that these guys are our leaders.
Yeah. That's what they're.
Bullshit.
I know.
They are our representatives, not leaders.
That's why you don't want this guy in blue, you know.
They announced it.
And one thing I have to ask is that, no one mentioned this, but in the event you are traveling this way, and someone, whatever, causes a serious accident involving your car, hits your car, causes your car to push into another car, now you got the police there investigating it or whatever.
Well, there you've got a situation where you've got to defend your state. If it's not your fault, it's somebody else's fault, then they're the ones that are going to get the charges that relate to the accident. Now, if you can also stand your ground with this and say, I am not in commerce, I am not driving, I do not need a driving license. You probably wouldn't want to say that because you're admitting something.
Well,
but the idea is that I will deal with the parties that were responsible for the accident, for the damage to mine, and I don't have to give you anything.
Right, but say the cops there, say he's foreman, and wants to know what happened, whatever. We understand that you were not at fault, they were other people or someone else was at fault. The cops collected his information, what do you then tell? Basically, you just, as far as your car was damaged or you got hurt, type of thing. So,
Again,
who you are, you still don't.
The police are there to collect evidence
Right.
against the person that was responsible,
Right.
or to find evidence of other crimes. You
Okay.
give your name, you give anything else, you're potentially opening yourself up to that investigation,
So
and then you get
Right.
tickets and citations and stuff. So the whole point is that you say to the officer, look, I am here, they are responsible, they caused this ongoing collision, which caused damage to the back, and in the case of a full shunt, the front.
Right.
I will get the information of the person responsible, and I will deal with them directly to get them to pay for the damages to my car.
Because many times people say, yeah, I'll give you mine, but I want your information. In other words, the person who was basically at fault.
They do that because in some states it's what they call a no-fault state.
Yeah.
They do it up in Canada too. It's a no-fault province where the insurance companies get the details and then they just deal with each other.
But that's like New York too, I think, right? Still no fault. So,
I don't know how it is in all, but the insurance people or the insurance companies deal with it, and the little people down below, they just get the instructions to go here, get an assessment, and then, a little bit later, okay, now you have to take it in and get the damage, or if it can't be driven, then it's already there, waiting for repair, and the insurance companies sort it all out. Your point is to say, well, I won't be dealing through the insurance, I'll just get his information. I'll give him mine directly, privately. I don't need to give it to you.
okay, that's what you're saying. Because otherwise, the guy said, oh, okay, well, you're not giving me your information, I'll just, I'm not giving you my type of thing, even though he's at fault.
You deal with him directly. And
Okay.
it's a little more difficult at the scene of an accident
Yeah.
because then
Yeah.
the cops go into a different
Right.
mindset about how to deal with it.
It's even worse if you got injured and had to be taken to a hospital by an ambulance, and you got,
Yeah, then you've got potentially other issues.
right, yeah.
How to deal with those is difficult. I mean, technically speaking as well, we are under the UN human rights, are entitled to free healthcare and immediate healthcare.
Well, if you
in the
take the
event of
hospital, they
damage
say-
and accident.
You say, yeah, what's your insurance, or what you, we don't have, you don't have any coverage, you're not insured health-wise. So you basically,
Again, you should look up what the relevant articles of the UN Convention on Human Rights is for healthcare.
we'll just take your social security number, that's what they want, because they look at collect somehow,
What
right?
if you don't have one?
Well, yeah, I don't. Straw Man has them, but I don't have one, so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it says not supposed to be for identification, the one I have, the original says, not for identification purposes, right on there.
So is the birth certificate in many states.
Yeah.
It says on mine, not to be used for identification purposes. And what's the first thing they want whenever you go into an official government agency?
Mm-hmm.
They want a birth certificate
Yeah,
for proof of identity.
right,
Are you committing a felony at that point?
yeah,
Personage, barratry.
right. So, well, people think they're free until they begin to realize we're not free.
Yeah, well, you also realise when you go through this how difficult it is to live that life.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing up hypotheticals.
Mhm.
Not not out of this world, you know, possible and probable hypotheticals of daily living.
Yeah.
And you're asking the questions that many people don't necessarily know the answer to. It's dependent on a lot of things on the day that it happens.
Yeah, God forbid you did cause an accident. Your brakes failed or something, and you wound up plowing into somebody, or the road was slippery. You're going downhill, it was all icy, and you know you're in the back, and you hit them. Someone else hit you. Well, he hit me, but I hit this other. You know, these people in front of me.
Well, again,
who you are, you know, where's your license and registration? Then?
You're responsible for repairing the damage to the guy you hit.
Yeah.
The guy who hit you is
Yeah.
responsible for repairing your damage, at least on the back. The one
Right.
at the front, you're responsible for that.
Even though
So-
he hit me, if he hit me and caused me, wouldn't he be responsible for me hitting someone else?
Yeah, if it's a shunt, then he would be responsible for
Yeah.
all of it.
Right.
But like you say, if you said ice,
Mm-hmm.
and you're skidded and you hit the guy in front of you,
Right.
you caused damage to him.
Okay.
But then the guy behind you hit the ice, he
Right.
started sliding and then slid into you.
Right.
So
Only if
you've
I
got
was,
damage at front and back.
right.
You're responsible for the damage at the front, plus the damage to the car you hit,
Right.
and the guy behind you is responsible for his damage, plus the damage to your vehicle.
Unless I was stopped, the other guy was stopped in front of me, but it was maybe a full distance, and this guy comes really fast, couldn't stop, hits me, and then I hit them.
Then it's a full
then-
shunt on all three
Right.
of you, so
Yeah.
yeah. So again, it's the circumstances. You work it out from the circumstances of the incident when it happens.
Right.
And you're entitled to deal with anything and everything privately.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if the cop asks you his name, oh no, because they want it for the report.
Yeah. Right.
Just say, I don't want to give my details.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to deal with him privately. We'll just swap names and addresses.
Yeah.
We'll arrange to get the damages repaired.
Was it the
Police, I'm not sure. Some states, I'm not sure if it's mandatory, but certainly I know when it got to a point in England and even in Canada, you didn't even need to report an accident. There were no injuries,
Okay.
and it was damage only.
Well, that's
You
true.
didn't even need to report it.
That's
You
true.
didn't need the police there.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Now, when they went over to full insurance company, then they said, okay, now you've got to report it, because then the insurance company want the police report.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that's why I say some states and some provinces and areas it's completely different.
Yeah.
But it did get to a point where you could have an accident
Mm-hmm.
that was damage only,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't have to call the police. You just dealt with it between yourselves, and then insurance companies got involved.
Yeah.
But then the insurance companies said, no, we need a police report.
Yeah. With some company, I had an issue with State Farm was pretty good for me, and then all of a sudden I had it for years, and then I didn't renew my Connecticut license at that time. I was living there, right? And I didn't renew it, right? And they knew it wasn't. They didn't. But I had an incident. It was a claim, and now they wanted, you have to show. And I didn't. They said, well, you have up to this point, whatever. So I didn't renew it,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically canceled the insurance. So,
Yeah.
so it was sort of like forcing me. We don't care where it is. You don't. Like someone saying, no, you have to have a New York. They don't say, I don't care what state. They said they didn't care what state it was from, as long as you have a full driver's license.
Yeah.
So, I do something.
Well, it's commercial. You're all operating in the commercial. So,
Yeah.
and your level of thinking is, oh, I've got a car, so I've got to have insurance.
Yeah.
Well, in the sovereign world, insurance companies don't exist. It's a
That's true.
corporation. In the
Yes.
sovereign world, people exist. Property exists.
Yeah, that's right. So, but is there assurance as opposed to insurance? In other words, or do you just have to basically get yourself a bond, basically, to protect? In other words, with so many.
Again, that's up to you. A lot of the times, though, you have to put down a fairly large sum of money for a bond.
I heard
Especially
yeah.
if you want to cover for accident. All you want is vehicle damage. A modest amount would be fine, usually, to cover for vehicle damage.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about injury,
Yeah. So 21 pieces of silver is nothing. Like some people talking about bonds, pulling a bond with that, but really what at current pricing of silver,
well, a bond has to be worth enough to cover the damage.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, because I talked to once. I was at a gas station. I got talking to this fellow who was a broker, an insurance broker growing up. This was in Queens, actually, in says, I got people that are, you know, very wealthy people, and they have maybe 10, 12 cars or whatever, and, you know, expensive cars. He says they have one plate, basically.
Mhm.
And he said they switch it from one to another, and they post a bond, you know, which is in the insurance test anyway. I mean, you know, so I guess it's a large enough bond that they're posting so that they're protected no matter what. But they only have one plate that they're, you know, whatever.
Well, that's a different agreement. But even if it was separate plates, but I get the point. They still have the bond.
Right.
So
$1 million
that
or
covers-
$2 million band should be equivalent to about $1 million or $2 million life policy. No?
Well, that's it. As far as the life is, I'm not sure how it would equate to deal with life insurance due to accident within
Yeah.
a car accident. So that you would have to look up, and it could be different depending on which insurance company you talk to.
Yeah.
They might want they might want the whole amount, or they might want a portion of it. I don't know. It depends on how they deal. So anyway, anybody got anything they want me to clarify or any questions?
For those people who are living in one state, like up north, and have an opportunity to do something that Glenn has done with Texas, I know they said you need to basically have an address or friends, or maybe have an apartment or something down there. I don't know. Does that make sense to consider something like that? Since it's Texas, you know you're not going to be in Texas, you're only going to be north. You may not even go out more than a couple, 3 states, but you have tags from there. Would that help with as far as jurisdiction, or someone not bother you, or are you making yourself a target because you have, you know?
I have a virtual address in Tennessee. So.
Okay. Well, that's another thing, because Tennessee, I don't think Tennessee, there's a couple of states, I think Tennessee might be one that you don't require full insurance in order to have, I know New Hampshire's that way, because I checked that out.
Mhm.
In other words, you can get tags there, but I remember calling someone who said, you know, there's people coming here from other states, and da-da-da, because you don't go to a DMV. You go down to the local office, so it's a small town type of thing, and you know, there. Now, they may, you know, they want to know, though, they want to know, do you reside here, type of thing, you know?
Well, a virtual address is, you know, something slightly different. But again, if you're applying for tags and you're applying for plates, then you're operating in the commercial. So
Yeah.
technically, should you be living on the land in that state? I don't know. Personally, I have the virtual mailbox because any official mail that I want to receive but don't want to give away where I am actually at that moment in time,
Right.
because I'm traveling the country.
Right.
I don't have a stable address. I'm care of most of the time.
Right.
So
Same here.
how do people contact you for more information on this?
Mostly through email. I
Okay.
don't have a website.
Right.
I'm an IT consultant, but I'm so far off the IT what would you term it? The social media. I'm so far off of being seen, let's say,
Right.
that, you know, most people, unless I give people information, then they don't find me, so to speak.
Okay.
You know, and any work that I do, it's all private contracts and it's through word of mouth. I don't advertise.
Mhm.
Don't do any of that.
Right.
So my whole point is that I've spoken about people that operate as an overcoat for the driving license, the straw man, social security. They want to deal in commerce. They put the overcoat on, they do whatever,
Yeah.
and then they take the overcoat off, and then they're a private man again. I'm a private man. I don't want to deal in commerce. I don't want to have any interaction with government. Government isn't there to help me,
Right.
so I don't want anything from them.
If anybody thought that under Trump's administration things will slowly be reversed and getting us going with his promise on a promise he made that the power is going to be reversed and
Return to the people.
placed back to the people. I'm getting flags all over because the Sleepy Joe had been confirmed that he's got 270.
They keep pushing that out there, but somebody posted something this
I
morning.
have
I thought it
friends-
was
I have
very
friends
relevant.
in Poland freaking out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's according to
There's
AP
people all over the
News.
world.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
are
right,
freaking
yeah.
out.
Because Newsmax didn't mention.
The fake news.
Well, I think
Actually,
right
they
now
had one of
that
their
the
things
fake
where it
news is
showed
being
on their
spread
site
everywhere.
273.
It's been that way
This
for
is it.
years.
But then
so
they-
they're not there.
Came
Well,
back. I'm not sure how that
I don't
happened,
know
but it
which
was a
state
Newsmax.
this
Well,
guy
let me
is.
tell you what,
It was a
my team
Newsmax
is going
graphic
to
that
Guantanamo, he's going
I'm not
to
sure
be
how
hanged.
that happened, but
Look,
it was
well,
presented
gentlemen,
anyway.
I mean, look,
The reason I find
I'm
this
all for
important,
it.
Yeah.
let me just say this, the reason
Show
I
me
find
one.
this important that you brought up there, Adam, Trump has made the promise to return the power to the people again. This will not be a socialist, communist country. The reason right now that they've not pushed forward and called these states and made it 270 or better for Biden is that they know that they've committed fraud. They've also been
Talking
put
about
on
these
notice.
Sting operations.
They've
and
been
what
put
are
on
marks
notice
and
that there's a
balance
sting
and-
operation that can track that fraud. So they know that fraudulent elections, being involved in fraudulent elections, is a little bit of a minor offence
No.
in the big scheme of things.
Right.
Usurping the presidency is a whole nother matter. And if they go and say, yeah, we're 273, we're 278, whatever, depending which state they declare is up, and they know it's fraudulent, and they didn't, and it's proven later, every one of them is up for treason and can hang.
Right. Exactly.
They have other offences that they're responsible for that they could probably hang anyway.
It's not official.
Yeah.
That's AP. It's nothing official.
Yeah. What is it
It's what they
showing?
want it to be.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's, AP says he's got 290, but it's not official. It's their opinion.
Yeah.
What are the states
Like
showing?
their
It's
opinion.
not been called.
So that would call for 2 states.
That's probably, actually no, that would probably be Pennsylvania, Georgia,
Pennsylvania,
and
20.
Nevada.
Well, he
Probably
was
calling all 3 states there.
He was where he was 264.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kept hanging on that 264 number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're making the change. We all want it. We all understand the situation as being awakened, aware, and intelligent people. Unfortunately, we then have the alternative Democrat liberals and the like, who obviously don't have any brains whatsoever. Because if they did, this is plainly in their face. So
Right.
they either are too stupid to see it,
Mhm.
or have really been programmed and indoctrinated to such an extent that they can't see it.
And they're extremely
When-
arrogant. Yeah.
When you're depleted from oxygen, it's much.
Well, that doesn't help either, you know, yeah. You're wearing a mask all the time.
It does affect the brain, you know, you're right.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Oh,
losing brain cells.
You don't have to tell me. 4 years ago, I nearly died from carbon monoxide poisoning. I know how that feels firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. 2 people.
If someone thinks giving birth hurts, let me tell you,
Yeah.
when you poisoned by carbon monoxide, moving pinky feels like giving birth.
Yeah.
That's the level of pain your entire body. Just you want to move, and it just hurts
Yeah.
to the point where you don't want to move anything. You just want to lay down, fall asleep, because when you wake up, you feel better.
Yeah.
If you wake up.
Right. Well, I know 2
Most-
people that happen to.
Actually, so I'm just
Yeah.
I want to interrupt, so just very briefly. I guess we've finished with all of this. If there's no more questions, I guess we can continue off
There's kind
camera.
of questions,
Um,
because the situation is never twice the same.
No, that's why I'm now trying to explain that. Every single incident is going to be different on its face.
Right.
And every choice has a left and a right. You know, somebody says something, or a certain decision is made, takes you this way. Different decision, different things said, it takes you that way. You know, the whole thing, and you have to be on the ball. You can't just you can't just let this fly. You have to be concentrating. You have to have your wits about you every moment that you're dealing with these cops on the side of the street.
Yeah.
And you know, this sequence, listen to the way I've said it. Fix it in your mind. Make it so that it's comfortable. So, I mean, just briefly go over it quickly. You pulled over. If you haven't had the guts to try and wave him by
Right.
when the lights come on,
Yeah.
pull over. Pull off onto private property, preferably. If you can't, if you're on a highway, don't pull over somewhere where it's dangerous. Try and, if you can, go to somewhere where you can pull off and it's a bit more, there's a bit more safety for you and for him.
Right.
You know, think of him as well. He's pulling you over, but...
Well, would you pull into somebody's driveway, though, if you were in a residence?
Well, yeah, you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
It's just trespassing,
Right,
technically.
he's
So,
trespassing, yeah.
but,
That's trespass.
yeah,
It's different if it's a commercial lot, or if it's, you know.
I think if it's a parking lot, it's the biggest reason that you want to get off the road is to not give them the reason to move your car, because they move it from the highway because it's a danger to the public and it's a danger to
Well, I told
traffic and
someone
so on.
that when I pulled into the
Majority
bank.
of my cases, it's always
Yeah.
a fast highway.
Yeah, yeah. So in that case, pull over where you can. So again, just to summarize the whole thing, and I know you missed it, so I'll go over it very, very quickly. The cops pulled you over, you're on the side of the road, he's behind you. At this point, you've got all your cameras going, you know, and if you didn't, you know, your cell phone camera, get into the video, get position, start recording. Dash cams, whether you have audio or video going. If you just have video, hit the audio and get that going too. And then quickly, and in fact you can be doing that hopefully while you're still driving, get it all done. Or if you've got a guest, get them to turn it all on so you can still concentrate. So pull over, he gets out of the car, wind your window down, you're probably going to have it all the way down. Get your hands on so he can see where your hands are. Lean out and say, "Hey officer, I saw your blue lights come on," or whatever red lights they are. I think there's an emergency. I tried to wave you by if that's what you did, but you didn't pass. Can I help you? What's the emergency? Can I help you? Preferably in that sequence. So you understand there's an emergency. The last thing you want on his brain for him to answer is, "Can I help you?" You're saying, "I want to help you."
Right.
I'm not going to be a dick about anything. I want to help you. What's the emergency? Can I help you? So he's walking to the car at this point, and hopefully he responds to the question and says, "Oh no, there's no emergency. You know, I don't need your help or anything." And then bring your window up. You missed it, but I'll say it again. People who say 2 inches, you're just going to piss off the cops. 5, 6 inches, to be honest, they're not going to be able to, you know, jump in the car window. They can see inside, you can hear, he can hear. Let's have a, you know, be communal and nice about this whole thing.
Right.
Especially if you're on a highway, you've got trucks going by, he can't hear you with the 2 inches thing, and he's just going to get pissed off. You don't want to piss him off, you want to get away from this. So the less you do of that, the better. So, wind the window back up again. Before he has the chance to start doing his spiel, then you jump into the next question, which would be, did you see me commit a breach of the peace? Commit or about to commit a breach of the peace? That's the common law offence, Manny. No.
Peace or peace treaty?
No, peace.
Just be.
Breach of the peace. It's common law breach of the peace. The answer would be no. There's no reason why it would be yes. So the answer would be no. So straight away, no breach of the peace. You're talking, you're keeping control of the conversation. And then you roll into the next question, which is, well, if there's no breach of the peace, did you see me commit or about to commit a felony arrestable offence?
Can we just go back to the first question
Which one?
of breaching a peace?
Okay.
Can we roll back?
Breach of the peace is basically used in
No.
like public order
I put my hands
offences.
down, I put my head back in the car, I rolled up the window
Yes.
halfway,
Yes.
and as he approaches me, I ask him,
Oh, yeah. In answer to the question that he hopefully responded to, that there's no emergency and I don't need your help for anything, thanks anyway. You go straight into well, in that case, did you see me commit or about to commit a breach of the peace? So, probable cause. It's a reason for him to pull you over. Now, breach of the peace is usually like a public order situation or offence where you're about to cause a kerfuffle or in the process of causing, a disagreement, a dispute, an angry situation, and it's in breach of the peace. It's a common law term, it's a common law. They usually have other public order offences and other similar things that they end up charging you with later on, but it stems from that kind of basic common law question. So what you're trying to do is get him to say no, because there's no reason why he should be saying yes on any of these questions. Because when he says no, then he has no probable cause. You just, as my quote said, vitiated this whole cause for pulling you over. Okay? So, breach of the peace? No, there's no breach of the peace. So straight away, your next question. Oh, there's no breach of the peace. So, well, did you see me commit or about to commit felony arrestable offence? Arrestable offence. What was it? Burglary. Did I do something that was so serious that it was a cause for arrest? His answer, typically with that one too, would be no. So straight away, you're into the next one, which is, oh, no felony arrest. Did you, or do you, in that case, have a verified warrant for my arrest in your possession? Now, they should always have a warrant for arrest in their possession. They don't always do it, because sometimes they'll have quick access to it. And part of the code is that they must give it to you as soon as practicable, which means as soon as they can. They must give it to you. And if they don't have it with them, usually it's because they identified you, knew who you were, checked that there was a warrant in existence, and then stopped you. And then they'll arrest you and present the warrant later on. So that question comes up, and they will say, hopefully, no, there is no warrant. So straight away, you then say, well, did you see the sign in the back of my conveyance? And if it's in a position where they did see it, and should see it, the answer to that is, well, yeah, I did see it. So your next question, before you give him any chance to go any further, is, well then, why am I under arrest? Because you are. An involuntary detention is an arrest. Whether he knows that or not depends on his level of service and knowledge and so on, but it is. His response will be, hopefully, you're not under arrest. Because, no cuffs on, I've not arrested you, I'm not reading you your rights, you're not under arrest. Well, in that case, thank you very much, officer. If I'm not under arrest, then I must be free to go. Have a nice day, I'm going to be on my way now. In gear, drive, go. Ballsy, you've got to have some cojones to do it. But you're legally in the right. Because he has not a leg to stand on. You have just vitiated every single probable cause angle that he had to pull you over. Because infractions are not criminal offences.
Yeah.
And he does not have them, and not criminal offences.
Mm-hmm.
They're civil. They're all civil.
I can already see him pulling gun on me
No,
while
they never.
driving
No,
off.
no.
Or
They would
dropping
never
in
be
his-
shooting at people.
Or dropping in his car, or calling for backup,
And that may be. That may be. And he may run back to his car and then scream off out at you and the lights going again. In which case, you pull over. and he's going to come to the window and say, "Officer, you just told me I wasn't under arrest."
It's gonna be like that.
That's right. There you go. That's a.
Well, that's a possibility, which is why I said you've got to have the balls to be able to do that in the first place. But technically, you have the legal right to do that. He can't say a damn thing. He just told you weren't under arrest. If you're not under arrest, you don't have to stay there.
That's right.
Thanks. And you just told him, "Officer, you just said, I'm not under arrest. I don't want to be here. If I'm not under arrest, then I'm going to be on my way. Have a nice day."
So either arrest me or
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
You're just being detained.
Well,
Or
no.
that.
He will say that.
See,
But
even
that's, I mean, if it gets to the point where he is going this route and is detaining you anyway,
Well,
and say, "No,
detaining
this is..."
arrest.
Yeah, I know it is. But what I'm saying is that if he's saying, "I'm detaining you for an investigation, investigative purposes," then you turn around to him and say, "Officer, an involuntary detention, no matter how short, how long, for whatever reason, is an arrest. If you are telling me now that this is a detention for investigative purposes, then I am telling you now that I am invoking all of my rights, reserving my rights, and I refuse to answer any of your questions. And at this point, you should read this."
Right. Okay.
And that, within the first 6 pages, explains everything. And if he wants to be a dick and belligerent, just say, "Officer, you obviously don't know the law. I don't know how many years, well, I won't say that. It just depends how confident you are. But
Right.
I was going to say, I don't know how many years service you've got in, but you obviously don't know the law. I want somebody down here who does. Get me your supervisor. I don't want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in fear at this point for my safety. You're armed.
Yeah.
You're threatening me now. You've got your hand on that gun. That's a felony, I hope you know." And then get his supervisor to come down there. And then, again, handing the notice, saying, "You better read this while you're at it, because right now we're on the clock, $1,000 a minute." And the reference for that case is in the paperwork I've just given you. So you better read it for your own safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how you say it is entirely up to you. You know, because to be honest, when you get into that, the adrenaline's kicking in, the fear's kicking in.
I'll take it best if slow, because time is ticking.
Yeah. Realistically, you want to be out of there as quickly as possible. You don't want to be there. So, because getting that money is going to be an issue anyway. But at least you're telling him that, hey,
Yeah.
the precedent's there.
Right.
Um, And in my case, my plate says no how. You want to take that chance?
No. Yeah. All
So,
right. If we want to contact him by email, is that?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
If he manages to continue with his, "I pulled you over because you were speeding, or because you made illegal left turn."
Officer, traffic infractions are not criminal. They are civil. You don't have the authority to pull me over for a civil matter. Unless I give my consent, and I don't give you my consent.
I'm confused now.
All kinds of civil.
I get that traffic infractions are civil, are not criminal. But this is why all the pulling overs are taking place, to hand one summons.
It's roadside piracy. It's roadside piracy.
Right.
They are trying to elicit money from you with
Traffic
menaces
infraction.
for a traffic infraction. You've harmed nobody. There's no crime. And you're telling them, I know it's no crime. It's a traffic infraction. It's a civil matter. It's a contractual matter. And only if I contract and agree. And I don't agree. only if you try and explain that on the side of the road with giving this out the window. It doesn't work, believe me. I've been on the other side. I don't listen to a word they say. Doesn't matter. But if the guy's going to hand me a 20-page document that explains to me exactly the situation, I think I better listen a little bit. And especially if part of that stuff that he's spouting out the window really does sound like he knows what he's talking about. If he's just babbling at me, as we've seen some of the videos, that's a different matter again. It's all about how you present yourself and how knowledgeable you, one, are and how you appear to be. So this isn't something for some, first day I'm all of a sudden a sovereign and run out there and let's try it, because you'll just find your ass in jail because you're just not capable of doing it. I mean, all of you in here have said certain things as a, as a hypothetical about, well, what if he says this, what if he says that? Have I had an answer to each one of them? Or have I bottled it and not? I've pretty much had an answer to whatever it is that you brought up. So when you get to that stage, then you can answer the cop with whatever it is that he's bringing up. Even to the extent of the Eddie Craig information, and I thank him for that, and I'll give him the credit for that, by protecting yourself, by automatically rebutting his accusation. And the accusation was that you've been drinking, or there's marijuana, or, there's, and in your case, there's a gun or there's a knife on the back seat. Gives him probable cause. It gives him probable cause. So the idea is not to give them probable cause. But like I say, if you've been spending the last 2 miles smoking a spliff and you smell marijuana,
Yeah, I don't do that.
no, and most people don't, and that's fair enough. But the thing is, if you have, then you can't turn around and say, well, that's patently false, because it isn't. You can smell it because you have.
Yeah.
Same as drinking. You can smell it because you have. In which case, you're out of your sovereign, responsible adult, and now you're into being irresponsible and likely, possibly, causing harm to other people. So if there are consequences to that, then you have to live and abide by it. But what I'm saying is, they will try and escalate if they can't. More often than not, they want to do, if they pulled you over, they want to give you a ticket, they want to do something. Because if they don't want to do the work, they won't pull you over. If they pulled you over, okay, at this point, more often than not, they're not going to just give you a warning. Unless you give them reason to say, okay, this guy's all right, I'll let him on. Or this guy's like, this is a hot potato, I don't want anything to do with this. But that's what you're looking for.
I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot. This was actually well presented.
Thank you. I just hope it works for people. But you have to have the knowledge. And I know it does work because I've seen it. I've seen people who have presented documentation. To what level, I don't know. I spent quite a bit of time on finding this information and putting it together, but making sure that it was in the right format, that he could gather what he needed to know within the first 6 pages. If he wanted to continue with the rest of the document, then its majority is definitions and citations and court cases and so on. All it is extra evidence that I'm just going to bring up in court if it ever gets there. He's going to have a shit ton of defending to do, or at least the prosecutor is. And he might just say, well, let the judge decide. And I'm going to say, well, the judge may kick this case. It may not even get there because the prosecutor may not even bring it to court. But if I have to defend myself up to that point, then you potentially will be looking at the civil suit and I'll be coming after you. And it's $1,000 a minute. And it won't be the department that pays it. It won't be the city that pays it.
See, all that requires knowledge I don't yet possess. How to write a motion, how to start that wheel.
Yeah. And that's something else. People have to get to grips with dealing with that. But the whole idea
Like,
is that
who
even
do
if you don't want to proceed with
who
it,
do you go after? I know Glenn goes after everyone.
yeah, well, everybody involved. Everybody involved. They
It's like
need to be
throwing
taught
mud
a
against
lesson.
the wall. You never know what's going to stick.
Right. They need to be taught the lesson sometimes. That's what Nelson's going through. They thought they were all, ooh, we're the big Ocean City cops. And then they realised that they're not. They weren't even operating under an oath. He's dealing with the paperwork and stuff associated. But they are now in a situation where they learned a lesson because of him standing his ground and him reserving his rights and proving that he had them. And now he's trying to go after them. Because if there's no consequences, do they ever learn? Now I'm saying, he's going that route. I'm saying with all of this, the idea is to keep those guys away from you. You just want to go about your life peaceably. You don't want to be throwing around lawsuits here, there and everywhere, unless you do, in which case great. And if you're capable of doing it, even better for you, wonderful. But the idea is that you want to live your life in peace, get on with your friends and neighbours and have a happy life and not be antagonised and threatened and, you know, have this money taken from you with menaces and with threats against
By
your
the way,
life.
did you bring several of those laminated quotes?
I didn't know. I have the original was I created in Publisher, Microsoft Publisher. It's easy to create, and then if you don't have your own laminator, Staples have laminated for you. Or you don't even need to have them laminated if you use a card, maybe. Just print out lots of them and stick them in the windows where you want them so that it can be seen. The whole idea is to give them notice so that they don't pull you over in the first place. Because that, if they know what they're doing, if they know the law, tells them that they don't have the authority to pull you over. So you've just told them. Everything that your code states, that's telling me I'm not doing it. So how can you pull me over? And if they do, then you go about telling them, well, hang on a minute. You don't have the jurisdiction. You don't have the probable cause, and if you want to continue with this, then potentially you're going to get in a world of hurt, and it's going to cost you money.
And that's all before you give them your name.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
then
you
again,
want to
then
find out my name, it'll be in litigation.
Well, my question is this, because they're supposed to wear something that has their name on it, or not on their uniform.
Well, they
Do
do.
they?
Initial of a first name
Or it's covered or
with
something.
a last name.
Well,
Yeah.
but if you don't see it, whatever, you can't get it from, then what's your recourse? I mean, all you have is no possible location.
They have to answer.
They have to ask, okay.
They have to identify themselves. They're a public servant.
When you say what's your
Now, if they're
name
going to be
and a badge
belligerent
number,
about the
they're
whole thing
gonna
and
say,
they're not,
see,
then they commit
it says right here.
other offences,
That
not
was
felonies or anything like that, but they commit
Right.
they commit offences. Oh, what the hell do we call it? It's police procedural
Okay.
offences and there's a term that I forget now. But
They have to pay the
it's
jury.
how police officers are supposed to operate,
Okay.
and they're in breach of that code if they don't identify themselves when requested.
And where they're from exactly, what town or what building, whatever.
All they really need to give you is their name and badge number.
Now, when you say name, is Officer Smith passable for a name?
Yeah, that's normally what they would do, because that will
I
identify
know that's
them.
normally what they would do. Officer Smith, badge number, blah, blah, blah. But is that your name?
Yeah, they don't give out all of the information because they know people will try and track them from the home address.
But they want
Because
my
they don't
name.
have the whole, I know, but they have some form, they have some protections because of the job they do. The badge number on its own would be enough to identify them in their system, within the police department and within the court, the prosecutor's office. You just give a badge number, and whatever the city was that cruiser that they were driving, that would be enough to identify them. You don't even need the full name, really.
Yeah.
But once you have that, you can find that information out, through the police records, department records. He refused to identify himself. All I got was his badge number, and he said he worked at this department, but he refused everything else. In fact, I think he was an extremely belligerent and uncouth officer. I'm surprised you've even got him employed. He's not a credit to your department at all.
Yeah.
Does it go against his record? You can even file an official complaint. I want to see a supervisor. I'm filing an official police complaint. And you could even do that side of the road when the supervisor comes down there. Are you the guy that I need to see to file an official police complaint against this officer? No, you'll have to come to the station. Well, it's $1,000 a minute, so what are we doing here? Are you going to let me go, or are we going to take this further? Again, it's how you deal. The situation changes from minute to minute. The supervisor shows up. How do you deal with the supervisor? Is he going to let you off, or is he going to be, an authoritarian? I know the law. You're just a punk on the side of the road. Well, I beg to differ, and this document tells you.
Well, we just have to get hold of risk management, right?
Yeah, yeah, they don't like that.
Yeah.
So it's not really to be belligerent and to be confrontational with them. It literally is, you just want to get on with your life.
Right.
You don't want to be hassled by these guys, and you have to give them enough reason to say, it's not worth it. I can sit here another 5 minutes and get another 3 that are passing me at 70 and 50, so I'll just get off of them guys.
Get away from this
It's not
point.
worth,
Yeah.
not worth my time.
Right.
Have a nice day, sir. Unless he feels that he really has the capability and the ability to start arresting you and going on with the extra bullshit.
Yeah.
Some do. Depends on departments and where you are in the country and so on. So again, everything is dependent on where you are, the officer, how he interfaces with you.
What part of the month would be a quota system?
Well, there's that too. But again, if all he's asking or all he's after is tickets for a quota, he doesn't want the hassle.
No.
It's probably longer for him to deal with me than it would be to just let me go on my way and then pick the next 2 or 3 up.
Yeah.
Who haven't got a clue, who just hand me the.
Right.
There's the driving license.
Yeah.
There's my registration.
Right.
Stew and simmer in the car while he comes back with the citation.
Yeah.
So
Which is most people, so.
it's most people.
Yeah.
So again, if he's an honourable cop, honours his oath, and you're pointing out that it's constitution, it's protected rights, and you're proving with evidence in his face that there's law to support what it is you're saying, you're not just doing this out the window.
You're one of those constitutional guys, right?
You're one of those sovereign citizens?
Sovereign citizens.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
that's what that's the first question. And as I mentioned to Marie before, Maria, sorry, I don't know if you
I
were in the room.
understand and
The answer
say
to that one was, well, which one are you talking about? Am I a
Right.
sovereign or a citizen?
Right.
I'm not both. I can't be both.
I'm
It's
a
one or
member
the
of
other.
CS.
So again, it's how you respond.
COSPA.
So you're even asking a question there. You're not even answering it.
Yeah.
You're asking, and that's another thing. Preferably, don't mute up. You maybe there's a circumstance where you still need to interact with the guy, but don't answer questions. Respond with a question. Oh, are you one of those sovereign citizens? Or which one are you talking about? A sovereign or a citizen? You didn't answer the question.
That's right.
I don't answer.
You asked one
Right, exactly.
in reply and showed that he was a dick because he didn't know what he was talking about.
Right. Right. Right.
Again, it's all how you respond, all how you reply, all how you deal with it. And, sometimes if you're smart enough and you're an ass enough about it, you can get yourself in trouble.
Mm.
So the idea really is to be nice.
Right.
Show that you know what you're talking about.
Right. Just be
But
quiet.
be polite about
Right,
it
right.
and be respectful of his
Mhm.
office and the duties performing for the community.
Right.
That's all I ever demanded, or not really even demanded, that's all I wanted
Mhm.
from the community that I was serving.
Yeah.
I wanted some respect from them. And the worst thing that I ever got was the 9 and 10 and 12-year-old kids that had absolutely zero respect for the police.
9 or 10.
Oh, yeah. I
You mean
told
inside of someone's car? You're going?
No,
Oh.
we're talking about on the streets.
Oh,
you know, in the divisions and area that I've worked.
Okay, right.
You know, we're talking in the city,
Yeah.
one of the second worst locations in the force area that I worked.
It'd be tough if that young.
So,
Yeah.
oh, they grew up to be crooks and thieves and criminals
Wow.
because they were starting young and they had absolutely no respect for the police. Absolutely not. So, I mean, the cops that work in similar situations in the cities in America,
Yeah.
I don't envy them because I've been there too. You know, the only difference is that here there's a lot more guns,
Yeah.
and they have guns of their own. I didn't have a gun, so I had occasion where we had to deal with incidents where guns were involved, but the majority of the situations were knives and swords, because that's what people could get their hands on.
Yeah.
And that's no fun either when all you've got is a 14-inch stick of wood.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
and they're coming at you with a samurai sword or a
Yeah.
Turkish scimitar. You know.
Right.
Yeah, it's just stand your ground, be nice,
Mm.
and just get past it as quickly as we can.
Right.
And if it gets to the point where he's going to issue a ticket, then accept the ticket and deal with it later.
Right.
You know, but
Right.
don't get all belligerent and fight, because we've seen those videos.
Yeah.
People screaming out the window, and the next, the cops yanking the car door open,
You know,
dragging them out, putting the cuffs on.
Yeah, that's not work.
You know,
It's only
there's
one
so
that-
many of them.
Yeah.
And that's prime video evidence of how not to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you'll find those all over the internet because they love those being up there and
Mm.
scare the
Yeah.
crap out of everybody.
Right.
They don't want people to.
Dealing with sovereign citizens.
Well, we've added that name to it. On a lot of them, people have put up, videos of this happening and sovereign citizen getting his just desserts, as the title. So it's not even the original poster of the video. It's someone else
Mm.
who's posting the video and showing, hey, look, this sovereign citizen was an ass and look what he got for being a sovereign citizen. So it scares everybody else. But, if he's a sovereign citizen, then that's his first mistake.
Right. Right.
So anyway, thank you for letting me
Okay. Yeah.
present
Thank you.
that information to you. I hope it was useful, and anybody who wants the document, I can get them, I'll send them a copy through the WhatsApp or email, whatever it might be.
Okay.
Just be aware though that it's a template, so to speak, so anything in there that you're going to use, make sure that it applies to you. The bit about police officers,
Right.
take it out.
I've read it.
Right.
Actually, it was written from your point of view.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, change it, make changes to it so that it fits your situation, and make sure you understand what it's saying as well.
Right.
What each of those citations, what each of those definitions, what it all means, so that you know. If he's going to question you, he probably won't, but if he's going to question you, or it's going to come up in conversation, you can say this definition, you can quote this act if necessary, that gives some power.
Right.
The other one, one of the big ones that doesn't get talked about is, apart from the Title 18's 241, 242, the deprivation of rights under the court of law, there's also the basic one that mentions that they can't turn a right into a crime. So the very fact that you are claiming a right right, claiming a right, reserving a right, claiming the right, they can, such as, I don't want to give you my name, I'm not going to answer your questions, they can't then turn that into a crime. That's in there somewhere, and again, I forget whether there's an actual court case, a Supreme Court case that refers to it. I think there is specifically.
Can't convert your rights into privileges.
No,
Cases.
they can't. No, they can't. They can't convert your reservation of a right into a crime.
Oh yeah, there's lots of cases about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they can.
They can't.
Right.
So if you're reserving your rights, and of course on paper you're telling him, also out the window before you're giving it, I'm telling you I'm reserving my rights. I waive none of them. I invoke all of my rights right here and now. Please read this. Whatever sequence you want to do. If he then, comes out saying, I'm going to arrest you for this, you can't do this because I'm going to arrest you. If it's the opposite of your reservation of a right, so if you told him, I'm reserving my rights and I'm not going to answer any questions, and that right is protected under the Fifth Amendment, then he cannot then turn that into a crime. That in itself is a crime under their codes. And again, you'll find it in there. There is citations for that in there. So understand it. So if he starts spouting at you about, I'm going to arrest you because you're not giving me your name, well, first find out the law in your states about failing to identify to a police officer, and when it occurs, because sometimes they do have some laws in some states where you do have to identify yourself. The majority of times, it's only after there's an arrest for a crime. An arrest for citation at the side of the road does not apply because it's civil, it's not criminal. It's only arrest for a criminal offence. And then they demand your ID and you must provide it at that point. But when they talk about it here, when you're not under arrest for a criminal offence, they can't demand it. And you must then also tell them. And you can also continue in the fact that I have also reserved my rights. And I'm not waiving any of them, and I've told you I'm not going to answer any questions. You cannot now turn that into a crime. The reservation of my rights cannot now be turned into a crime. So again, the more you know, the more things you can throw at them. The idea is to respond to everything that they say and rebut everything that they say. And the same goes in any paperwork that you have any dealing with. People start sending you paperwork through the mail. One, they're not sending it to you, but if you're going to get into this, or backwards and forwards, it's like an affidavit. Every affidavit has a point by point. And you must respond to every one of those points, unless you agree with one of them, in which case you ignore it. You take it as, I agree with that, I read it, but if you don't agree with it, then you must respond to it and say, point blah blah, whatever the actual fact is in response. So that's it. That's it. That's the way you have to. That's the way you have to behave and respond. But don't look at it as a fight at the side of the road, because realistically, if you're going to do that, you're more than likely going to lose, because he's going to radio. He's going to have bodies in there within minutes. So the idea is to be nice. Let's get it dealt with before he has to call his friends and colleagues over and supervisors, and let him give you the stuff back and say, have a nice day. You obviously know your stuff. And then if that's the case, please, everybody, if that's the case, if he's willing, officer, thank you very much for dealing with me in a respectful and lawful way. Can I shake your hand, because you're an officer that your department should be proud of. And make him feel good when he walks away.
Right.
That he did the right thing. You told him he did the right thing.
Yeah.
Don't leave him with a flea in his ear, because the next guy that gets pulled over, he might not be so generous. So think of the next guy that's trying to operate as a citizen, or a sovereign, sorry. So yeah, be nice. and praise them. If they deserve the praise, then praise. I wanted the recognition too. When I did a good job and I was helpful, I wanted the community to recognise that that's what I'd done. I was doing it for the community.
Right.
I was doing it for their protection, for their benefit. And many times, because of the divisions I worked in, you didn't get any of that kind of response and respect back from them. So, if they deserve it, then give it to them. Say thank you very much. Have a great day. Please spread the word to the rest of the officers at your department that there are more people like me out here. We are operating both lawfully and legally. Oh, and that does remind me. I really didn't bring that up, but the letter. Yeah. So this one. I'm just going to show this on the camera in a minute. It's the Arizona Department of State. This particular letter is part of my document, which also, you guys see that there. So this is just the apostle notice certification of the letter that is here. Now this was provided by, is it a senator or is it one of those?
Arizona Senator.
Yeah, it was a senator in Arizona. And this was in 1985. I have another one somewhere, I think that actually refers to someone in Philadelphia, I believe. I keep meaning to find that one, but I can't. But in any case, what it actually says, this senator was writing to Department of Public Safety, which he was overseeing the police and so on. And his understanding was that there are a number of citizens of the state who are returning and handing in all of their documents, and doing so quite legally. And police officers are having interactions with these people and dealing with them in an unlawful and illegal manner by imposing legislation and codes and regulations on them when it doesn't apply. So what he was saying here is that is the case. These codes and statutes don't apply to these people. They've rescinded their contract with the state. So if you come across or you hear of officers that come across these incidents, I want a tally, I want a notification of all of these incidents for whatever records and how they turned out. Did the officers let them go, or did it escalate and was there an arrest and was it like a shit fit going on? Because these people were lawfully and legally standing for their rights, rescinding their contracts, and were being bullied and illegally arrested. So this letter basically said that, and it came from a state senator. So the reason I have this in there, it also shows, hey, look, state senator said that what I'm doing here is legal and lawful, and you don't really have the power. Just accept the situation and have a nice day.
I don't want to cut in, but this is 1985 now. Think from 1985.
Doesn't matter, the law still applies.
How many things change? It almost makes you feel like sovereigns today
I
are
know that.
part of domestic terrorism.
Terrorism, I know. It doesn't matter because nothing has been rescinded. That law that he's talking about, where citizens or otherwise, even non-citizens, if they have licenses, it doesn't matter. They are rescinding their contracts with the state. They are saying, I don't want to have anything to do with the state anymore. I'm giving you back my driving license, I'm giving you back my registrations, I'm giving you back my social security number, if they are. I'm giving everything back. I want nothing to do with you. I don't want any of your benefits, and
Because
I want to operate
I'm a lot
lawfully.
on high frequency radio with Yusuf Al, and he has a lot of material regarding social security number,
I know he
regarding
does.
social security
I know he
number,
does.
and you pretty much, you basically cannot detach yourself.
You
from
cannot, well, no, what you do is it's not yours.
Right.
it belongs to a Satanic trust. You cannot cancel it. I've tried it, believe me.
I think you brought it up too.
But you just quit using it. It's not yours.
That's it.
It's not yours. It becomes a contract when you use it.
But this is the point, you quit using it and now you're cut off from things that should be available to you
Well,
on
actually,
your daily proceedings.
when push comes to shove,
Yeah, bank
the
account.
only things you get cut off of are things that you shouldn't be having. Okay? If a lot of these forms and stuff, when you go and apply for something, that has a blank for a social security number in there, if you don't fill it out, 9 times out of 10, they'll still process it. Okay? They just ask for it. They're required to ask for it.
Yeah.
But if they flat out refuse to give you things like welfare or unemployment insurance, or those kinds of things, then it's because you shouldn't be getting that stuff. You see what I'm saying? And so those are privileges that only that Satanic trust has access to. And so if you don't give them the number in those situations, then my attitude is I don't want it anyways.
You have to remember you're operating away from the benefits of the state, and they're not really benefits. They're entanglements. Yeah, it's a good word, but they're also enticements.
Yeah.
You know, they're bribes
Right.
to get you involved with them. So, like I say, with this guy, senator openly admitted that citizens understand their status and have rescinded all of their contracts.
Yeah.
And I know it's even more recent, although this is from Canada. I opened a credit union account in Canada within the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
And I did it without a social security number. And I knew everything that was required, the legislation, all that stuff. And I went into the bank, I went in with my ex-wife at the time, and I said, we want to open 2 separate accounts. One in her name and one in my name. She said, have you got your form of ID, your social insurance number, and a bill from the address?
Yeah.
So I said, sure. I gave her a cancelled driving license, expired, was no longer valid, and I gave her a utility bill with the address on it. She said, what about your social insurance number? I said, I don't need to give you that.
Actually, in Canada, it's the law. They can't force you to give it to. It's better in that way in Canada.
Yeah, but I
it
tried that
actually
here.
says on like you can apply for a credit card,
Yeah.
and you don't have to give them a social security number for that either.
They won't give you credit if you don't give them social insurance.
Well, I've done it all. I've done it
They won't do it anymore.
in
Because when I opened the bank account,
Uh-huh.
they couldn't be an interest-bearing account, and I couldn't apply for a credit card.
Oh, well, that has certain advantages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's
nothing
true.
wrong with that.
No,
No,
no.
interest-bearing account. I don't want your interest-bearing
Yeah.
account anyway.
Exactly.
What,
Exactly.
0.5%?
Quarter percent.
Yeah. And then it ties you in with the CRA.
Exactly.
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
support.
Exactly.
So, anyway, I had a to and forward with this, and she was the assistant manager to the branch. The
I
assistant
don't
branch
think all
manager.
assistant managers.
No. She actually within 3 weeks became the manager of the branch. So she'd already done the management training, and then it was just an official thing, period, before she actually became the manager. So
Right.
she should have known,
Yeah.
and didn't. So anyway, I told her, and we had a little bit of a conversation. I said, look, it's 4:30. You're closing in half an hour. I was expecting this was not going to take too long. I'll be back in again tomorrow, or we'll be back in again tomorrow. I'll give you until 10:30. We'll come back in and we'll fill out the paperwork and get it all completed. And she's like, what?
Well, see, I tried that here in the credit union upstate. Number one, they try to give them an older, license that expired. This is expired, we can't use this type of thing. They'll take a passport, but this is what I found is the biggest thing, is use social security number for opening an account. That's what seems to be, there's other places, no, we can't help you here,
It has to be tied down to that account.
I mean, if you open up for a
There's-
trust,
The
they
reason
want your
being
social
is the
security number.
Patriot Act.
There's
It's the
carry.
Patriot Act.
Well, Well, that's what
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
they claim it's a patriot, but Kerry has done it and claims to be able to do it anytime he wants.
Who's Kerry?
Kerry's the guy on that jurisdiction conference call, the guy that thinks he developed the Form 1020.
Oh, okay, right.
Anyways,
Oh, I talked to him.
he says what he does is he says, well, he's got a religious objection. And, you know, you see these people wearing turbans through
Yeah.
security
Yeah.
and doing all that stuff.
Exactly.
And it's religious.
Yeah.
And so, and he says what he'll do is he'll just go in and just be real nice, and he'll just tell them there's no law that says that anybody has to have one, and he believes that it's the mark of the devil, and he has a religious objection to it. And
I actually have the paperwork that says
Where is
there
that
is no
Form
legal
1020?
requirement to have one.
But they can
it's
also,
not, you make it up.
but they have the right to basically say, okay,
can't
fine,
ask
we
Where's
know
an
that, we're not
example
open
of
account
a
anymore.
Form
That's what do you
1020?
do then, that's what
I
I'm
can
saying.
email it to you.
Then do you
I
file
can
a
email you
notice
one
of
that I
complaint,
use. Sure.
civil complaint
Email
against
it to
them,
you.
Okay.
or
deprivation of your rights?
Print one off tonight.
I
I'll
did.
put it down.
I think if you do
I
that,
did.
that's the law
Mistaken.
department, right, then they'll
Sorry?
probably,
Is
let
it
this
someone
guy, you know,
mistaken?
we'll get him in here. Because I heard people came in
On a
from other
flash drive?
countries, or like Mexico, no idea, like, oh yeah, we open up
Probably.
accounts in a
Should
long
be on
time,
the
you know.
flash drive.
Where would I
Should be on
find that?
Should be on there.
You have
I know
so
it
much
happens.
stuff on there.
There's
I
a
know it
lot of
happens,
stuff.
but-
Anyways, so Kerry claims to use the religious objection, and he says that what'll happen is he'll go in there, he just be real nice, and he'll say, oh, by the way, who's in charge of your law department if I want to send them a letter?
Mm.
And they'll tell it to him, they'll give it to him, and you can also, any big bank, you can get that kind of information online.
Right.
Anyways, and he'll just make notes while he goes in there, and they're going to turn him down. He expects it, and then he'll send a letter to the chief counsel and tell him that they violated his religious right to. He wanted to open a bank account, and tell him that they violated his freedom of religion, and that he's filing. You know, I don't know, he might make some threats about filing criminal complaints or something. But the bottom line is that in a couple days he'll get a phone call or a letter saying, you know, go ahead, make yourself an appointment.
Right.
And he's usually pretty nice with them, so a lot of times he'll leave the secretary, he'll get their names and stuff, and he'll put it in the letter. And then and he'll send all that, and then when he talks to them, tell them, look, you know, they're going to give you a call and about setting up this account, and so you can reach me at this number or something. Anyways, he'll get a phone call or he'll get a letter telling him, come on down, make an appointment, we'll set you up an account.
Now, with this, credit unions as well as banks, or just banks?
I don't know about credit unions
Okay.
because the reason credit unions are,
They operate more loosely.
well, they're, in a way they are, but in a way,
Yeah.
I don't believe, I know people that work for credit unions, and these are big credit unions, and they all have bank accounts,
Right.
and they have to go and do a bank deposit every
Right.
night. I don't think, and also people that, credit unions are real sticklers about, like if you don't make the payments, you know, they're really bloodhounds about,
Because
and
it's their money that's online, I think.
exactly.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it's their money. It's a depositor's money. It's not. They can't leverage it like banks can.
Right.
And so they actually have to loan a depositor's money, whereas banks don't loan a depositor's money. They just create it out of nothing.
Yeah. Right.
And so the credit unions are. So for that reason, you know, I think that they're real sticklers about making sure and getting that Social Security number too. I don't normally deal with credit unions, quite frankly, because of that.
Right.
But they're, yeah. So there's people that I know that work for a credit union, and they had to do a bank deposit every night. So they didn't keep any cash in the credit union.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And so, you know, they were basically operating out of a bank account. Anyways, it's we've been going for like
Yeah. I know.
It's what, 2:45. I mean, we can continue on till 5 o'clock.
Well, we've been going for less 20 minutes, maybe.
Well, he started out at 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
So
He just got
we can keep going if you want, or we can take a lunch break, or even a short break if you want to take a short break. You know, you tell me, what do you want to do? It's up to you. I think what we'll do is, if nobody has any objections, we'll just keep going, I guess, eh?
All right.
I've got something, I was actually working on a criminal complaint against a district attorney that I'm doing. But I've got a presentation.
No, it's all right.
I was-
Whoops, David, for that.
Do we want to take a short break?
I
It's a
just
baby.
didn't-
5, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Sure, okay. Let's take a 5 or 10 minute break, that's fine. And, matter of fact, I think
I was going to do a lot of things.
Sorry?